as always. Matt, you enjoying these final few weeks of the regular season here?
Yeah, whatever. Who in the hell wouldn't want Jimmy Butler on the Sacramento Kings? Who?
Okay. First of all, I'm a broadcast journalist. I didn't say I didn't want Jimmy Butler on the Sacramento Kings. All I said was you really want to go out and get a 33-year-old that will almost certainly come in here, break the playoff drought, piss everybody off, and then be gone in a year.
Sure.
He'll be the best player on the team right away, and he changes the locker room dynamic like we've been asking for years. Hell yes, I want Jimmy Butler in a Kings uniform.
Question for you two.
Yes, Damian Barling in the back.
Did he change the locker room dynamic in Minnesota?
Kind of.
He called out the right people, and when he left, they were garbage again until now.
Now, look, he's almost like his favorite coach, Tom Thibodeau, where there is a shelf life on Jimmy Butler. And I was listening to somebody over the weekend, and they made a great point. Jimmy, he seems to only know one way to lead, for better or for worse. Like, he looked at Cat, and he's like, I'm going to lead by telling you everything about yourself, right? And you either get with it or get lost. And that didn't work for Cat. And they use the analogy of like Anthony Edwards. Like Anthony Edwards already is a leader and complementary to Cat, where it's like, he's not going to tell Cat who he isn't. He's going to build up what he is, right? You know what I mean? And that's just different ways of leading. You know, some people, you know, can handle the Jimmy Butler stuff and embrace that a little bit. Like, I think Joel Embiid Jimmy never had to do it with Joel, but I think they meshed more and their personalities meshed more than Cat. What Jimmy, would his personality match up with De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis? I don't know. I'd like to find out.
Okay.
I'd like to find out.
I would just like to state for the record, I do not believe Jimmy Butler is getting traded.
Doesn't he have a year left? Is he expiring? Or he has more time on his contract?
Oh, no, I don't think he's expiring.
He signed, 3 years ago? This might be the third season.
I don't know. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll look it up.
I think this might be the third year of the deal.
Better than Googling during the radio show.
All I'm saying, man, is there like this organization top to bottom, not just the roster.
Yeah, I say that because I was like, well, he'd be the same as Harrison Barnes. Yeah, one year after this.
This organization top to bottom, and not just the players, could use a personality like Jimmy Butler in there to rattle some cages and change some things. Because after 16 years, I ain't trying to hear about hurt feelings. I don't care.
For a season? Like, y'all really think Jimmy could just come in here and...
Yes.
Well, he'd be an upgrade at the small forward spot. No disrespect to Harrison, but Jimmy's a better ball player.
It's never going to happen, but I mean, we're just talking about in terms of like I said, he's instantly the best player on this team. All respect to Fox and Sabonis if they're still around. He's instantly the best player on this team, and the leadership that he brings in and provides is exactly what we've been begging for. And going back to a couple months ago when we were talking about how they were stepping to the podium and the things that they were saying, Harrison Barnes, probably the most consistent leader on this Kings team that has to step to the podium and doesn't call anybody out because it's not really his style. Like Jimmy Butler, I think is a personality like Jimmy Butler is exactly what this organization needs.
It's 33. What are we doing right now? And Sabonis and Fox would both still be here. The trade would be Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes and whatever else.
You might entice him by giving up your pick. Would you give up your pick
for 1 year?
So,
y'all are wild. Like, I know, hey, I want the playoff drought to end too, man, but y'all are.
Hey, man, imagine what he could do for Davion Mitchell. That's all I'm saying. I think he.
Am I alone on this? Am I the only one? Like, it's
giving up your pick is a little Chris Brown. That's a little iffy, but
I do Harrison and Rashawn. You could because contract like that's all fine, but when you talk about a player that's making $37 million next year, and like what?
I honestly believe it would either have to be your pick or Davion.
Tell you what, D'Lo, get me one of those pink hoodies. I'll go to your side.
Okay. Can you rock pink?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. If you can rock it,
everybody can rock pink, huh? You just gotta pull it off. You know, you just gotta have the confidence.
Depending upon the time of year, it might blend a little bit, but hey.
Okay. I think I'm not positive. I think Matt George just turned heel. Oh my
God! All right. When are you asking me about Chris Rock and Will Smith? When are you asking me about that?
Oh man.
Oh God. That's actually what I wanted. That's what this is what I've waited all day for. I wanted Matt George's take on Chris Rock and Will Smith.
Absolutely did.
Do you have a take that you want to unload on everybody, or are you saving that for the Locked On Oscars podcast?
It's not going to be brought up on the Oscars podcast. I guess I will say really quick, I actually was sleeping during it, so I didn't see it happen live.
Who are you, Davion? It was like 8 o'clock.
All right, calm down.
Yeah, man, I get up at work at 2 a.m. What you talking about?
Oh,
no, I woke up and I went through everything on Twitter, and I felt sad about it almost. Like I just felt weird about it. And it's because I unfortunately fell into the cesspool of some Twitter accounts that have profile pictures that look like me making this about representation at the Oscars and whether or not a certain community, and you guys know what I'm alluding to here, a certain community should be getting this stage on the Oscars, and look what they did with it, which I think is absolute garbage.
We ain't never getting invited back.
Yeah.
That's
over.
I
just don't want it to overshadow some of the great things from the night. Like, Cotto winning was amazing. Sacramento's own Jessica Chastain winning, which is rad. Ariana DeBose, I think is how you pronounce her name. Like she was amazing as well. And I thought Chris Rock handled the entire thing really, really well. So I was uncomfortable by it, like watching it and reliving it, and I'm disappointed in Will. But I also am not going to sit here on a pedestal and say that if my wife wasn't insulted on national television, I wouldn't be upset about it. I don't know if I'd throw a punch because I'd get my ass kicked, but hey, I might break my wrist making contact.
Oh, I love Matt. I love Matt for moments like this.
It's like a pool noodle coming at you.
I know you wanted to talk about it. I could see you wanted to talk about it, but you do it in this lovingly awkward way that just makes it fantastic.
Lovingly awkward is like a tagline for me. I should put it on a business card.
I believe we should. We could get a lovingly awkward shirt made over at DLKC.com. Advertise Locked On. Maddie McQueen, indeed. I felt the way you did. Sad and disappointed watching the Kings play the Magic on Saturday. Obviously, the Kings get the win, 114 to 110. That was. I know what we're doing. Like I get it, Matt. Like, man, this is going to be a tough final 7 games of the season. You try to find silver linings in these games. You try to find things to look for. And every time I find something, whether it's Davion, I walk away with more questions.
It was the overtime that nobody wanted, truly.
Right.
In fact, I give a round of applause to Orlando for the masterclass of tanking that they showed there, completely falling apart there. And I did say on the podcast, though, like that win overall is not good for the Sacramento Kings when you're looking at draft lottery standings and lottery odds and things like that. And we're well into that point here at this point towards the end of the season. But if you're going to win a game like that, the best way to win it is by Davion Mitchell being the guy to win it for you. And it wasn't just picking Cole Anthony's pocket and getting the game tying layup. It was the back-to-back assist off of corner threes hit by one Dante DiVincenzo, who we expect to be around next year, and 2 Harrison Barnes, who we expect to be around next year. Like the guys that you expect to be here, at least were the guys getting the buckets and making the moments. And it wasn't Trey Lyles. No disrespect to him. I think he's been playing pretty well, but I know Trey Lyles is not going to be my starting 4 next season. It wasn't, as good of a game as Alex Len had, it wasn't Alex Len that was doing it. It was at least guys that matter. So that was my silver lining to pull out of it. But I did end up almost having kind of a negative take podcast after that game, guys, because I started talking about the conversation of like, Davion Mitchell's playing well. This is the second stretch where he's been a starter and he has played really well. The first stretch was when De'Aaron Fox was out and he was doing it next to Tyrese Halliburton. Now there's no Tyrese, no De'Aaron. All of it's falling on Davion Mitchell's shoulders. And once again, he's shining. He's playing well. All that being said, we're still looking at the starting 2 spot for next season and wondering if there's anybody on this roster that can fill that role. Davion is making a case for himself, but my case against Davion getting that spot actually has more to do with De'Aaron Fox than it does Davion Mitchell. just because the two best times that Davion's played well, it's when Fox hasn't been playing. And that's not to say that either holds the other back. It's that Davion has been super successful with the ball in his hands when the Kings needed him to step up as a scorer. If you could give me 25 to 30 minutes of that Davion Mitchell coming off the bench, and maybe he closes the game for you next to De'Aaron Fox, I'm way more for that than I am trying to force the two of them together again and risk De'Aaron Fox struggling with a second primary ball handler.
So I understand what you're saying. I get it. Do you think that is that Davion Mitchell? Is there something that he can do and he can show you in these games, or that can add to his game that can kind of change your mind about that pairing with Fox?
I don't know. Like, I think if Davion were showing a innate ability as a catch and shoot scorer, someone who didn't need to really create for himself. And Davion's done an excellent job, I felt, at getting to his spots and using his ability to get to his spots to open up games for his teammates. Like he had 9 assists against the Magic, also had 7 rebounds. Like he flirted with a triple double a little bit, but he did all of that creating for himself and creating for his team, which I absolutely want to see from a point guard. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not taking anything away from what he showed, but what he showed to me is the same thing that Tyrese Halliburton showed to some extent. And Tyrese and Fox didn't work together. And I'm going into next season with the full expectations that this team is going to be a play-in team, or playoff team, not just a team that sneaks in through the play-in, but is actually in the conversation from start to finish. And if they're going to be that, then De'Aaron Fox has to be the version of Fox we've seen since the trade before the injury for the majority, if not all 82 games. So I'm not, even as good as Davion Mitchell is playing, it's not a punishment towards Davion Mitchell. It's an optimizing De'Aaron Fox conversation. As long as Fox is still here, Mitchell has to fit that role. And I just don't think starting him at the 2 spot next season does that. I also don't know if starting anybody on this roster at the 2 spot right now fixes that.
And real quick, Damien, I agree with what you're saying. And I know a lot of people, we talked about it earlier, and now bringing up this conversation are back to talking about how Fox is a problem because other people can't fit with him. I think it's real simple. Somebody like Davion, somebody like when Tyrese was here, what you need in any 2 guard, but specifically next to De'Aaron Fox, is somebody who can shoot the ball consistently and can create from a number of different places on the court, and can create, in a catch and shoot or on a triple threat situation, and can come off a screen and roll and knock down a jump shot consistently. I think, and you're not going to figure it out in the last 7 games of this season, but if Davion gets to a point where he is more of a consistent jump shooter, not just from 3, but even if he at the mid-range coming off the screens, and when bigs sag off the pick and roll or whatever, he can knock that down religiously. I think that would add to the dynamic of being able to play. But if it's hit or miss, you can't. I don't want my shooting guard right there at having a hit or miss jump shot.
And you have stunned Matt George with that take. Like, Matt is just blown away.
No more to add. I vote for Kenny. Kenny,
blown
2022.
away by that. Matt George's response to Kenny is the same response I have to all these Neemias Queta minutes that we've been getting over the course of the last few games.
Ugh.
Just spectacular minutes from the second round pick in Neemias Queta. That's sarcasm for those who are unaware. He continues to not play.
No, and for anybody watching on the stream, no, Matt's mic was not muted because he just got slapped. It's just really him just being.
I was just waiting for what's next, man. I thought the conversation had come to an end. I said what I had to say, but actually, D'Lo, I'm curious. Like, do you bring up that Neemias Queta stuff with like you think he should be getting those minutes and is not, or that people who are making a big deal for him to get those minutes, like we got to pump our brakes on that a little bit?
I'd like to see Neemias Queta play. I don't really know what the Kings are doing here moving forward. Like, maybe they are, and I don't have a problem if the approach is to win games and you believe that Alex Len is your best opportunity to win games that ultimately don't get you nowhere, unless, and I know some people very much do believe this, unless the Lakers really are going to lose damn near every game that they play. And if they do, the Kings are still in the conversation. I'd like to remind a couple of you, San Antonio's won like 2 or 3 in a row. It's not just the Kings and the Lakers right there. Like there's San Antonio, like Portland.
They still hadn't passed up Portland.
Portland will forfeit a game before they allow themselves to be involved in a play-in, but or in the conversation for a play-in. But Alvin has said, yeah, we'll see Neemias Queta, we'll see Josh Jackson, when in fact we don't see Neemias Queta and we don't see Josh Jackson. Maybe he's waiting for them to officially be eliminated, maybe he's waiting for the magic number to change. I'm not really sure, but Queta is, there were a couple of things. Like the most important person down the stretch, I thought, Matt, was Davion. Davion was clearly going to be guy number one for this final stretch without De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. I wanted to see that. I wanted to see Dante DiVincenzo too. I wanted to see how he worked. I wanted to see how Alvin utilized him. And then I thought, you know what? Bonus. Let's take a look at Neemias Queta. He seemed to be a guy that Monty McNair was just thrilled fell to him in the draft. Let's see what we can get out of him in extended play here. I think there have been little signs here and there like, hey, this might be all right. A little raw, but this might be all right. When in fact, like, no, we just don't put Alex Len out there, who, again, as you said, he played really well. Don't want to knock it, but.
Well, especially when Queta provides 2 primary skills that this team could really use, which is rim protection and rebounding. I mean, he's a natural 7-footer. He's capable of running the floor, we think, at least from what we've seen in his time with the Stockton Kings. He gets up and down the floor pretty well. Of course, he's raw. And look, the expectations are not that he's going to come in and play so well that suddenly it's like, oh, he absolutely has to be in the rotation next season. It's possible. We've seen it happen before, but that's not the expectation. The expectation is for him to get some actual NBA time to see what you have rather than just relying completely on training camp, which can always send mixed messages. Remember, training camp earlier on, we saw De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell playing one-on-one like the other was never going to score again. We saw Tristan Thompson pounding his chest, running up the floor like he was Chris Webber. Like, training camp doesn't mean anything when you actually get to the regular season, and not that these end of the regular season games on a losing team against a tanking team mean that much. But, and I'm an Alex Len fan. Like, I believe Alex Len should have been used more than he has been this season. Not to say that he should have gotten like Damian Jones's minutes, because Jones has played really well all season long, and I hope he's a King next year. But especially right now, like, if you don't have Sabonis playing, if you don't have Rashawn Holmes playing, if Damian Jones is your starting center, and especially in a game where he's getting into foul trouble, hell yeah, get Queta some minutes in there. And I know Alvin Gentry's coaching for his job. I know he doesn't give a damn about a future of the Sacramento Kings that doesn't involve him, which there is no future of the Sacramento Kings that involves him unless it's as an assistant coach at this point in time. Like, I don't blame him for that necessarily, but like you say these things like, we'd like to find some minutes and get this guy some minutes. Coach, that's on you. You're the one that controls that. So you say you'd like to, prove it. Put the kid in and see what he's got. Like, I think Queta should be playing at least 10 minutes a night every single game for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, it baffles.
Kenny, Matt brought up training camp.
You all bought it. You all bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. You all bought it. Every damn one of you were made fools of.
Yes, we were. Yes, we were.
Oh man, these poor guys, poor Sacramento Kings media people. They better not post not one video of
nothing
training camp next year.
Iron sharpens iron.
I did multiple podcasts on those videos, so I am speaking from a place of full hypocrisy.
You all bought it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're so stupid.
I agree with both of you guys, though, man. I think Queta should be getting some type of a look. Alex Len, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the point is of playing Alex Len over Queta on a nightly basis. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know.
Still think Alex Len can help them win games, and I still think they want to win games. They don't
feel like
they don't want to experiment with Queta.
Well, I feel like Queta could give you just as good of a chance to win.
I agree.
As Alex Len.
Alex Len is one of 2 players on this roster that know how to actually set a screen, though. Like, that's been an issue for the Kings for a long time, and Alex Len has been able to provide that. We saw a couple of moments where Len's body alone gives Davion Mitchell enough separation to shoot that mid-range jumper that he likes so much. I think there are 2 or 3 different buckets that Mitchell got off of just Alex Len screens alone. So, I mean, if Damian Jones can learn a thing or two, or Neemias Queta can learn a thing or two about how to set a screen from either Domantas Sabonis or Alex Len, I think that's time well spent, I guess. But yeah, Len doesn't provide such a difference that it makes Nehemias Queta unplayable.
Yeah, that does matter though. The whole screen setting thing. I know Matt's been on that for years.
Hell yeah.
It's screen.
It's the biggest thing that pissed me off about Marvin Bagley. It's the biggest thing that pissed me off about Marvin is because Marvin was supposed to be
the Pistons love Marvin Bagley. You ain't heard?
Yeah, Marvin Bagley doesn't set a screen there neither. And he's got Cade Cunningham to screen for. He didn't set a good screen for De'Aaron Fox. Like he slips every screen and he makes it useless for someone who's supposed to be this athletic pick and roll threat. Why am I bagging on Bagley all of a sudden? But for somebody who's supposed to be this pick and roll threat, man,
Bagley hurt you pretty bad.
But it's not just Marvin. Like Willie Cauley-Stein did the same damn thing. Like you're a big, just stand there. Well, then again, if you had to set a screen for Buddy Hield, here I'm going to drag Buddy into it. Why not? If you had to set a screen for Buddy Hield, Buddy wouldn't wait for you to get set anyway and would just get a foul called on you. So screw that. Maybe it's not worth it.
Chair shots for everybody from Matt George here today. I didn't realize this during the game. Boy, Shemezi really is up and down, man. Shemezi was all of dude. He rides these waves, dude. He is like either here or here. Like Shemezi Metu has not found that like in between sweet spot yet.
No, he's feast or famine.
Oh man, that's our guy.
That's our guy. Freeport.
Oh man,
you know what I'm saying?
Gracious.
He's absolutely feast or famine. That's for sure.
Guys, is there more than 5 or 6 guys on this roster right now that you want to see back next season? Like I was thinking about this and writing down names. Like I have Fox, Sabonis, Mitchell, DiVincenzo, Barnes. Is there anybody else that like you really want to see? Maybe I just said Damian Jones.
Yeah.
That's like 6 guys on this roster that I want to see back.
Did you have Lyles on there?
No. I mean, I wouldn't mind Trey Lyles if he's going to be a rotational big, but
different role.
If Trey Lyles is a starter next season, the Kings are garbage again.
Well, they're not garbage.
Point. I mean,
maybe not good.
I like Trey Lyles a little bit more than most people do. I will admit that. But I do understand that you've got to be strong in so many other places if Trey Lyles is getting like a lot of minutes. And I don't know if the roster construction is ready for something like that. So
here's the thing though. Like, do we expect the West to be this bad again next season, or do we expect the West to get better? Because if the Kings couldn't make it now with the West being this bad, of course we expect them to be better with a full season of Fox and Sabonis, knock on wood. But like we're expecting the West, I'm expecting the West to get better, which means the Kings have to get exponentially better if they're really going to be the playoff team that I expect them to be with that core. So like if that's the conversation, then we don't have time to talk about Trey Lyles. We don't have time to talk about.
Did you mention Terrence Davis?
I mentioned Davis. I want to see.
You did. Okay.
I could listen to an argument, but I haven't seen Terrence Davis play for months. And when he did play, as much as I think his skill set would help this team right now, like Terrence Davis was as streaky as they came. So I don't need a streaky shooting guard as my starter on a playoff.
We got some cool rotational players. We just don't have anyone for them to rotate with.
You got a roster full of fringe. You got like 3 designated starters and a roster full of fringe. You know, you got to fix that, Monty.
Sacramento fringes.
It's not that far off from other teams, though. It's like it's not that far off. Like just name a random squad, like Minnesota, who's 10 games over. They got 3 starters, and
2 of them are all stars.
Right? No, that's a big deal. But I'm just saying they got 3 starters, and then they're rolling out Pat Bev. Malik Beasley's really good too. Like he's good, but
Dallas would be like a team that I use. Like Dallas's roster does not impress me, but they're just good. Like Dallas's roster has never impressed me outside of Luka Doncic. Like they're just good. And they play defense, which is nice to see.
Wow.
That's Matt George, the host of the Locked On Kings podcast. Matt has to get to work because Alvin Gentry is going to talk soon. Probably going to tell us how he wants to get Josh Jackson into Nehemias Queta some minutes. Kings play today at 4:30 against the Miami Heat. Matt, we appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Kings podcast. We're back.